Hi, this is Michael Waits, and welcome back to InsurTech Amplified. We are joined today by Scott Knowles, a co-founder and the CEO at LostScan. Scott, it's so great to have you on the show. I really appreciate you doing this. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mike. Thanks for having us. A little correction, though.
Go for it.
LostScan, although initially was our company, we are actually Deep Vector. One of the things that we found with our company is when we first started, we were initially focused on one singular objective, one singular goal. And as we began to develop the product and the company out, we found that truly our product fit a much bigger atmosphere than we really thought initially. So not to throw you a curveball at you, but truly our new company is Deep Vector.
Deep Vector. Okay, I like this actually, and I'll tell you why. Because I think, and I want to talk about insurance first, because as the entry point into, let me say this, and again, tell me if I'm wrong, but if LostScan was the entry point into Deep Vector, then insurance was the entry point into all the other potential industries where you can take this technology that you built and use it to help them out as well. But I do think in a way it's a little bit of a metaphor for the way companies get built, if that makes sense, in the sense that I have this idea, I implement this idea, I show this idea to my customers and potential customers, and they say, yeah, that's great for this, but it could also be great for that. And then you go back to your team and you think, we should do this for more things. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, we had the singular focus. We knew what the problem was in a single industry, but as we began to build a product, we started to have customers and others actually reach out to us and say, hey, we see what you're able to do with your current company and your current operations. Is it possible that you could potentially, change this a little bit and tweak it to be able to fit our needs as well? And we looked at it and said, well, absolutely, we can definitely do that. Which we had to look at from a totally different perspective. And analyze, what does this look like, not only for us as a company, but also for different industries. And it's really a huge, powerful change for us as a company, because we took a market segment that was looking like this and we just blew it up. And now it's all over the place. And so it's really an incredible opportunity for us. And, although insurance is our primary focus and it's very important to us and will still be our primary focus, this gives us that opportunity to truly tap into, new industries and markets.
So can we do this? Can we run through at least initially what the idea was with LostScan, right? You looked at this problem, you said, we can solve this by doing X. What was the problem? What was the X solution? And then how did it get morphed out into something bigger? And go into as much detail as you want, because I'm really interested in how that happens, actually.
Yeah, so the one thing about me is I've been in the industry for 30 plus years as a commercial insurance agent initially. And then obviously I own another software company, which I did sell. And during that time frame, I not only as an individual understood that there was a problem that needed a solution, but also with my other companies, I was able to also see that also was a problem for our existing customers. So, and the real problem, that we had in the industry is loss runs. Insurance loss runs are so complex. They're so different from one carrier to the next that it created an issue to be able to access the data that was necessary to make educated decisions. And I say this a lot to our customers. Our primary focus is to give you the data so that you can make educated decisions. If you were the president of the United States or something like that, you depend on information, right? You depend on others to give you that information. But if you can't get to it, or if it's difficult to access it, you can't always get the best results. So knowing this, we knew that being able to get the data off of loss runs, and not just, financial information, but every granular detail, is opening up a massive door for the entire industry to be able to really, truly take a good, solid look at, their internal books of business, analyze, what markets they may want to go into, educate their clients on where problems exist or whatever it may be. But that was really the problem that we were trying to solve, is getting the data. How can we get this data? How can we get it off accurately, quickly, efficiently, at a low cost for, to give everybody that opportunity to access and do these evaluations and use it how they see fit. So that's really how it started.
What changed technically, right? So you're sitting around, this is a problem. You know, like you understand the difference between structured data and unstructured data. You know how different each one of these loss reports are. Even probably internally in some companies, I would guess that it's different for this department or that department, right? But definitely across the industry from company to company, it's going to be super different. You've known this for a while, though. You and everybody else has known this for a while. What had to change, like technically or technologically, for you to say, now I think we can do this? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I do, and the change hasn't necessarily been with technology. It's just been with
Go for it.
focus. Yeah, I mean, it's truly it's always been there, something we wanted to do, but it was just a matter of time for us to be able to focus on it. We were very busy with Logic and building that platform out with the analytics and such behind that, and so we really just didn't focus on this. And we thought down the road, well, this is one of a potential opportunity for us to step into. My business partner and I, who we've had at the prior company, he's our CTO now. We both, when we finalized everything with our acquisition and walked away, we sat together and said, "What's next?"
Yeah.
And then we laid out our 5 ideas that we had already have. I mean, we have 4 other ideas that we want to go after eventually down the road, which we'll see if we ever do.
I love it.
But and they're not all in the insurance industry, which is unique. But we tend to like to build things that are very pinpoint focused, solve a very specific problem. And this is one of those ones where it's like, this is a specific problem that I think that we can really solve. And if we use a different methodology and thought process behind how we develop this, we can really succeed at it. And we knew that going in, that nobody was really doing this the way that we were going to do it or thinking about it in the same way that we were thinking about it. So that's what made us very different.
Can I ask you this? Sorry, I shouldn't even phrase the question that way. I want to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship, if that's okay with you. Like you said, you've been working on these things for a long time now. And I do think that like the first company is always maybe like the most exciting company, maybe. But once you become an entrepreneur, do you find it like easier to come up with ideas, even while you're building this thing, right? And you said you and your business partner were sitting around going, once we close this thing, what do we do next? But at least you had an idea or a few ideas even, right? And so entrepreneurship is this weird thing where it's like, once you're in it, everything seems like an opportunity in a way. Is that a fair thing to say?
Oh, totally. I'll tell you, it's very strange for me because everything that I do personally outside of this company, I look at things and say, why aren't they doing it this way? It could be something as simple as a corkscrew that I see. It's like, this is so stupid. Why do they have this way? This doesn't make any sense. If I had all the money in the world, I would change so many different little things that don't make sense. Everything from, why don't they sell, for my drawer in my kitchen, the little thing that'll hold all my forks and knives exactly in a perfect little cutout thing. I have to go build that myself if I want to do it, or I have to have somebody build it. It's like, that is just like, it's just a simple thing. Everybody would run it, I mean, but somebody's got to build it. Somebody's got to spend the time to do that. So, yes, in a way, I feel like it is easy for me personally, and not everybody has the same mentality and thought process, I guess. I am a very creative person, so I tend to kind of think very outside the box. I don't live in mainstream, so to say. I really like to just look totally different and say, this is a problem and everybody is focused on doing it this way. And I want to do it this way. And so that's how my thought process, works. And my partner and I, we mentally work in a very a linear path. So it's easy for us to be creative with the ways that we do things. I can throw ideas at him. He can throw ideas back, but collectively we're able to solve problems quickly and efficiently without having all the bureaucracy behind us, so to say. So that's fun.
Yeah. And it's a really interesting concept. And sorry to stay on this, but I do find this really fascinating. Periodically, I've been asked to teach courses on innovation at some of the Thai universities. And one of the things I always ask the students, whether they're MBA students or BA students or bachelor's of science students, is don't you ever sit around with your friends and say, here's this thing, I wish somebody would fix it. That's your idea, right? And this is your idea with the forks and knives. I built a house. And when we built the house, we literally measured the forks and knives that we had so we could build the drawer exactly to spec. So I know that feeling exactly. But in real life, this idea of creativity and finding ways to fix things that exist all over the place, to me, is like super interesting. Talk to me about how this feeling of, not that we've solved it yet, but once we saw this problem in the insurance industry, right? This loss scan stuff that you were doing, where was the moment where you figured out, wait a second, if we can make the tech do this, and actually you said it's not even just a tech problem, but if there's a data issue and a data understanding problem in insurance, can't there also be one even in like garbage collection, waste management, fintech?
Everywhere.
Do you know what I mean?
Everywhere.
And once you saw that, because you went from here to you did this, like I couldn't even see your hands. They got so big.
Yeah, absolutely.
So can I ask you this? How do you then address like how you attack all of those different opportunities in a way where it's still efficient to then do it and the business doesn't get overwhelmed with, with the size and the scale of that? Does that make sense?
Totally. So we've opened up this door literally as of yesterday. We launched our new website and everything. So we now have opened up basically a labyrinth of tell us what you need. Right. So we are now giving industries, individuals the opportunity to reach out to us and tell us this is our problem, because we don't really know what all the problems are. We know that they're there, but we have no clue what they are. So we're just kind of collectively sitting back and waiting, every single time we get a reach out from a different industry. I mean, I honestly think that there is a massive opportunity, within the government. In the government sector, there are so many problems and so many opportunities to offer solutions, which require analyzing old data that are on archaic types of documents that we can essentially get off in seconds. In the banking industry, I personally know that in order for me to actually evaluate some statements that I had, some bank statements, I was able to upload them into our system and get all of that off, because you can only get PDF documents from your bank, right? And I was able to get all my financial information off right away. It's either that or you have to have an API connection with like a QuickBooks or something. So it's like, wow, well, here we go. So let's put it this way. I think that every new opportunity is also scary. It's challenging. It's an opportunity. It's an obstacle that needs to be overcome. That's going to come with challenges. And it is an objective to slowly and carefully learn what that problem is, and then figure out how we can offer a solution, if we can offer that solution for that problem. And it's not a rush thing. You've got to really talk, and you've got to do probably the most important thing, which is listen. You have to listen to them and carefully listen and understand specifically what is the problem and specifically what is the result that you want to get when we solve this problem. And we're still learning that right now, even with our product loss scan. We're still talking to our customers and saying, hey, where are we failing? What else can we give you? What else do you need, so that we can maintain you as a customer and we can grow as a company? So
that actually leads to this other question that I have. And I know this from my own business, right? You feel yourself growing and you want to scale, right? Everyone talks about scaling. I hate this term blitz scaling because I think it's a little bit of BS, right? I think it's part of this like startup fantasy world that lives way off to, I don't know, the left or the right, wherever it is, right? But it's not in reality, at least for me. But at some level, you do have to have this flexible scaling mentality of like, if the growth for this individual customer and my group of customers continues to go in the same way, how can I then have enough servers? How can I have enough tech growth? How can I do that? So how do you manage that risk of what if they look like they're going to grow, but then they stop? We have to keep up with them and invest in the right amount of infrastructure to be able to service them, even if there's only one product. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. It makes perfect sense. And we've grown at the pace that we've wanted to grow over the last 2 years. We've carefully grown. we've also learned as we grew, we didn't want too many customers initially. We
Yeah.
really wanted to kind of make sure that we were solving the problem properly and learning, when you do need to grow and expand, how are we going to do that? So we built our system to allow us to essentially quickly flip on servers. It's amazing how we built this thing where we can literally just turn up the dials and boom, everything can be stable. And it works phenomenally. But we had to learn from our mistakes. We had to learn that, at times, we had documents coming in that were so large. I mean, thousands of pages were hitting our servers and going like, slowing everything down. And so we had to be creative in the way that we actually were able to adapt to handling those large documents while at the same time receiving hundreds of other documents at the same time. So yeah, it's very important to be able to scale from a technology standpoint. But I think most importantly, you have to be able to scale from a human capacity standpoint. So you have to have the ability to be able to service those customers. We really look at things in a way as we are solving the problem of not eliminating humans, but reducing the amount of human interaction necessary to solve this problem, right? So we do look at the challenges that come along to make sure that we can essentially not have to add so much human element in the background. And we truly do use technology instead to solve those problems. So we may need to add somebody, but then we can probably just keep it to that next person or next two people because we then have changed our technology appropriately to allow those individuals to be able to handle a much larger mass of a workload, so to say. So I think that's very important to not just, hey, there's a problem. Let's get another customer service person. Let's get another customer service. It's like, wait, no, there's a problem. Figure out what it is, solve the problem. So you don't need the customer service person there to be able to, handle with a customer. And I got kind of a story in a second that kind of goes around that happened to me yesterday.
Can you tell me?
Yeah, well, it's totally. So I was on vacation yesterday with my family, and of course, as things change, with weather and so forth, so on, our flight was canceled, right?
Oh, no.
And the airline that we were using was Avelo Airlines, and we use them because it's hard to get to where we live, and so they're one of the only ones that had a direct flight. And I was visiting my parents in Palm Springs and trying to come home, and all of a sudden, the flight gets canceled. Well, they just did the absolute worst job of being able to not only inform us that there was a problem, right? They didn't send us text messages. Luckily enough, like I went online, I looked and I thought, oh, wow, my flight's, been delayed first. Like, okay, it's been delayed by 2 hours. So we got a little bit more time with the family. And then I'm like, I just have a bad feeling, and I had to go into the app and then I see this thing that says canceled. I'm like, it's canceled. But they didn't send us any messages, and it's like, okay, well, let me call them just to make sure because I don't want to be stuck where maybe it's just been canceled for a little bit. And, sure enough, I called them. 280 people in front of me with a 300 plus minute wait. And I'm like, and all I wanted to do was, am I going to get my money back? I mean, they could have easily solved this problem with technology to send out a message to say, sorry, it's been canceled. We're giving you a full refund, or here are your 5 different options. Select one of them. They could reduce half of that load on the back end, at least, if not more. But they don't think about it that way. So that's just a great solution, an explanation of what happened to me recently and where they can use technology to solve that and make them such a better company. But they got the wrong people there who don't think about it the same way. They don't think from a consumer standpoint, and that's a problem.
Do you find though, and this is again another interesting way to look at this for me, do you find though that when you're going through your life like that and you have an experience like that then you bring that experience back into your own company and think, how can we 100% make sure 2 things? Either one, if it's a bad experience, that this never happens to one of our customers, that we anticipate this type of issue and think, how would we solve that? Because we don't want our guys and gals waiting 300 minutes. Like that's just inappropriate. But on the other hand, if it's a great experience that we have, how do we make sure that we build that in as well? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. And there's a lot behind that. The best thing I could possibly say, and the most important thing that we live behind is get in their shoes. It's very simple. You got to get in their shoes. You got to pretend like you're the one who's sitting behind the desk. You got to pretend like you're the one whose flight was canceled. You've got to understand what they're thinking, what their frustrations are. When they're happy, you got to figure out how to capture that information as well. I mean, that's gold to us. When you have a happy customer, you ask them, say, "Hey, I'm so happy you're happy. Can you give us a testimonial?
Right.
Can you refer a friend? I mean, and so forth, so on." But those are all processes that, you learn from and take time. When you do a startup like we did and you bootstrap it initially and then you run and, you get funding and go through that process, there are points in time when you can begin to implement those different processes to help your company grow. And we're now at that point where we have a very solid product. We're still learning. We're still adjusting and flexing, to be able to meet everybody's needs. But overall, we've got a very solid product and we're very pleased with what we're doing and we have very happy customers. So now it's like, okay, now how do we tweak it just a little bit to make it even better? How do we offer more solutions? And so we are literally internally going through that process of talking to our customers and asking them the questions and what are we doing wrong? What are we doing right? How can we fix it? So forth, so on. So yeah, I think get in your shoes is the most important thing for anybody to ever think about before they can, be successful.
It may sound strange to talk about empathy in the context of entrepreneurship, but I do think that empathetic feeling of being in somebody else's shoes is super important. How would I want someone to treat me? And how would I want them to solve this problem for me? And how do I build that into whatever my infrastructure is? Again, whether it's technology, human, or some combination of both, right?
Absolutely.
To be able to make that experience so much better. We try to do this all the time in the stuff that we do, and we'll use tech where it's appropriate, but we'll also use human interaction where it's appropriate too, because I think the combination of those two things can be really powerful. Can we talk a little bit about, and only because you mentioned it, the government, if you don't mind? I'm curious how you're thinking about this. And the reason why is because I kind of feel like we're at a tipping point, and I'll say we. I haven't lived in the U.S. in 30 years, but I am a U.S. citizen, right? So I do pay attention to what's going on in the world. Medicare and Medicaid, right, which are, again, related to insurance in the health industry, are two of the biggest parts of the government, right? They're funded I don't think there's a funding problem there. But I would imagine if I walked into the data room where this stuff gets run, even though it's run really well and their costs are pretty low for serving this medical care to people, but I presume that their ability to do data analysis is just like from the 1970s.
Oh, most likely. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. And they're probably running on IBM AX machines those would be some really bad IBM Unix servers. But I just wonder, as a company trying to deal with the government, what is that actually like? And are those opportunities actually possible just based on just how many big incumbent systems they have there and how hard that is?
I would say, well, yes, number one. I think that you have to approach a situation dealing with the government with a understanding that you're going to be dealing with, some very slow moving services and individuals, in order to, get something done. But I think you really have to be very creative on how you're going to address that and make sure that you're doing it in the right way. I think you start with the problem, and that's what it is. It's like, okay, so what is the problem here? Is it just that the systems are old and outdated and you need a new system? Or is the problem that you just want to figure out what's going on with your information, your data, and you want to analyze it and you need to capture it in some way? What is the end result that you're looking for? So if you know what the end result is and you know what the problem is, then you can come up with a solution in between, right? And I think that's how it has to be approached, is just literally sitting down and say, what is your problem? How can we solve it? And are we the right ones to be able to solve that for you? I haven't yet had to deal with, working with the government yet. We hope to, because we think that it is a huge opportunity for us as a company. Yeah. But most definitely, I think we're going to learn a lot, about dealing with every other company once you deal with the government and how that works. So,
yeah. it's so just in my head, it just feels like this monolithic thing that's so hard to deal with. But if you can deal with it, the impact that you can have is so large that it's definitely worth trying to do.
Totally. And I think Elon Musk, now, just kind of being in the picture that he can see, all these problems and he thinks that he has all the solutions for them. I think that's super cool personally, because I think that we do need kind of an uprising in there to clean all this junk out, clean out all the mess that's been there. I don't even think that we know what we're spending and what we're spending it on. I know that we don't know what we're spending things on, and that's scary. And it's sad. That we spend so much money on wasteful things that have absolutely no purpose. So
yeah, there's a big push and pull here, right? Because it's a much longer conversation, but I think it's really important. This is why I said I think we're at a tipping point. You can make the point that, again, Medicare and Medicaid are really efficient systems, but you 100% know for sure that even at that level of efficiency, there must still be a massive amount of waste there because of the systems they're running on are so old that they can't know exactly what's actually going on there. And even if they did, and if it's one of the biggest things in the government, one of the largest costs in the government, even if you can take like 3%, 5%, 4% away, it's a massive saving. And that is worth, I think, at least trying to do. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, 1,000%. And I think that there's no question about it. I mean, if you can think about taking all that information about all the different claims that come in, all the different types of injuries and so forth, so on, and, really just figure out, here's where we're having problems. Here's where we can offer solutions, whether they be direct solutions internally with how you manage, those claims and so forth, so on, or maybe they're even simpler things of like, we can predict that we're going to have these types of claims with individuals that are of this age. If we offer them these types of solutions, back braces, whatever they may be, to reduce that from happening, guess what? Our bottom line is going to change dramatically. And that's where the mentality behind, really our product loss scan and Deep Vector came from, is we know that we can take claims information that a broker, a carrier can basically put together on an individual company or a grouping of types of companies, analyze it and understand that, hey, this is the specific problem for this type of business. Car dealerships is where I used to live. That's what I insured. And I knew that if you were in the service department and you didn't have a specific type of equipment that would help technicians lift transmissions or engines or whatever it may be, parts, then you're going to have back problems. You look at car manufacturers who build cars. And if you watch these videos on, the mechanical devices and all these robots that now put the seats in the cars, humans used to have to lift those things. What did they have? They had back problems, so it's sometimes just kind of pinpoint finding that problem and then offering the solution, but you can't do it unless you know where the problem is. So,
but isn't this is one of the other interesting things though about using artificial intelligence at scale, right? To be able to do this. And that is, I may know what the first order problem is, right? And I may have a solution to that first order problem. Like you said, a back problem for a guy or a gal who's lifting a seat into a car. But if I can analyze data at scale and do that efficiently, I may be able to fix that problem in a way that's way more efficient and cheaper and better for everybody, even though it feels like if I do X, it's going to cost way more. But down the line, because I can do that analysis now, it's going to cost way less. And net, everybody's winning, which you couldn't do before because it would take you 25 years to analyze all that data.
Totally. But here's the real key with AI, right? AI works phenomenally when you have clean data. Okay. And what I mean by that is you have to have a subset of information that is true and accurate down to, the finite most point, right? If you have that and then you throw AI on top, your analysis that you're going to get out of it is going to truly be accurate, right? And I think that's where we are different as a company is we don't use AI on the front end to get the data off of these loss runs because the accuracy level would be 80%. We use different mechanisms in order to get that information. Then we can layer the AI on top of that So now we have a clean data set that we're asking AI from a very well-known set of information to then analyze and give us results. So now you get the true experience of understanding, wow, that's really the problem. And we can stand behind it that is the problem because this data is good, it's clean, it's accurate, and we don't have to worry about this 20% variance. We get to 99.9% variance.
So the follow on to that has to be, what is the reaction from your clients when they see the variance go down, which means that the results and the output is way more believable, if that makes sense, right? So you're taking away 20% of the variance. It's huge. And if you can get to 99% accuracy, now the questions that they're asking and the results that they get, the impact of that is so much higher. What happens to them? And what's the reaction to you when they say like, oh my God, that's actually way better than the results we've been having before?
Yeah, so that's one of the things I really get excited about.
For sure.
I know, like when we do demos and we present them to clients, we say, send us your loss runs, right? And we throw them at our system and they sit there, they wait a couple seconds and all of a sudden they see all the data. And they kind of sit there with like, oh, wow. And I'll say, isn't that exciting? you know, and they're like, can you scroll through that? Is that information correct? It's like, yeah, it's 100% accurate right here. We do your accuracy measures right here. You can see it's 100% accurate. Well, did you get the claim descriptions? Because I usually only get a little bit of the claim description. Oh yeah, the full thing's right here. Really? Say, yeah, really? Isn't this exciting? I just don't, sometimes I just don't believe it. Right. And neither did we. It's so cool when we were able to do it, initially. It was like, wow, look at this. It actually works. And it's doing this and it's doing this. And then, sometimes it didn't work, but that meant we needed to tweak it and change it and do that. So, the excitement that I get is the excitement I see from our customers. We had our first adopters who came in and they had to deal with our struggles. They had to deal with the fact that, we only had, so many loss runs mapped. And now we have, I think 5,800 different loss runs that have been mapped in our systems, and we'll accept data immediately and send it out. And when we see something new, it just goes through and we do it in a matter of minutes. And then all of a sudden it's like, wow, now we've got a new map, and off we go. So yeah,
is there something for, it's super exciting. Is there something for entrepreneurs to learn? You kind of buried this little thing inside that little explanation that you gave, right? Where some of your customers were learning along with you and going through that struggle with you. It's this idea of your original customers have to be willing to get tripped up along the way. They have to trust you from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
And we used to do this when I was at Goldman. We used to do this all the time. When we built new algorithms or built new technology, we would always go to okay, you're our best client. We trust you and you trust us. Can you work with us on this thing? And they're like, oh my God, that did not work. But they didn't take us off their phone line. They just went, here's how you can fix it. Do you do that as well when you're building stuff now? Choose your first customers carefully, if that makes sense.
Yes and no.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know exactly what you mean. I mean, I think the most difficult thing, with us and what we do is getting the communication from our customers, getting our customers to actually tell us what's wrong. It's hard sometimes. And it's surprising, to me that it's like, you'll get a customer comes on and says, it just doesn't work. And then they stop using it. It's like, well, no, but it does work. Just talk to us. You need to talk. If this was something that, at all, it looked like something that was going to solve a problem for you, communicate with us. We're here to listen and understand and change and manipulate our systems in order to do so. And, we had one customer which did communicate with us, told us everything that was wrong, all the things that they need. And we built it. It took us a while to build it. In that time, they just kind of got frustrated and left us. And to me, it's very painful. As a, developer owner of a company to be like, we don't want to lose you. We want to solve your problem. And we know that we can. But when they leave and you did all this work, especially for them, it's quite painful. I mean, but The good news is you've got all that information. You knew what was wrong and you can still fix it. And that's what we did. Even though they weren't here anymore, we still fixed it. And we created a whole new system that now solves their problem, even though they're not a customer of ours. It's like, well, you're missing out. I mean,
I was gonna say they left too early, right?
We left too early. You needed to be a little bit patient with us. And I think that, for a consumer, if you have a company that's willing and able to actually communicate with you and work with you, let them be patient. We're willing to do things that are well over and above, what others are. And because we are a growing company, we can build exactly what you want and it won't cost you anything. I mean, it's basically free technology service. You don't need to go to a new developer to say, build this. We're building it. Just tell us. It's so easy. Open your mouth and let us know. So,
and I was telling you, that's why I asked you this question, because one of the things that I learned really early on at Goldman was, particularly when you're developing new stuff, if you choose your original clients really carefully, they will be the ones that will tell you all this stuff. And maybe they'll moan a little bit along the way, but they won't leave either. And when they don't leave, they get all the benefits of the stuff that you developed directly for them. And they love it because nobody else will do that for them. This gets back into the empathy that you were talking about before, right? Imagine if you were at the counter or you called, you got this text from the airline and they were like, your flight's been canceled, but we're not 100% sure that it's canceled for the entire day. Is there anything else that we can do for you to help you along this thing? Is your luggage, like you would have just been with your wife or your kids going, can you believe this? This is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you would have done stuff to help them. That's the difference. Yeah.
Yeah. It's okay to have problems. It's okay to fail. It's okay to fall flat on your face, but it's how you communicate and how you address those problems with your customers that make all the difference in the world. It's like when you get a meal and they mess it up and they're like, hey, we took it off the price and here's a new one. Those make all the difference in the world, for everybody, and they will allow you to succeed, and we're succeeding, and that's what's important. So.
I love it. One of the things we talked about during our prep call was this idea of educated people can be good at anything they tried, but to be great at something, you have to care. And the one thing you cannot fake is this excitement. And I can hear it in your voice. I can see it, like, as you're talking about the stuff you're building. You seem really excited about this. I want to do this. I want to let you go because I think we've had an incredible conversation. I've learned a ton about this, but I want to follow up with you. And I think we may have mentioned this during the prep call. You're at this stage now where you figured out that this thing works really well, but you've also figured out that it can travel. I want to come back to you after you've traveled with it a little bit, if you don't mind, to see where it's getting applied and implemented in finance, in banking, in other parts of healthcare. And the last thing I want to ask you about is, have you been funded? And if you have, do you want to talk about it at all?
Sure. Actually, we literally just announced yesterday that we have been funded. So InsurTech New York.
Congratulations.
And thank you so much. And Aperture Ventures did back us. Very exciting for us. It gives us an opportunity to truly scale and grow the way that we need to. One thing as a CEO and a founder of even a second time, founder is you don't know everything. And I'm always learning, and to have, such valuable partners behind us to be able to help us find solutions to our problems and implement the right processes. And build this foundation that's necessary to scale this company is unbelievably important. So, I think it's scary. Quite honestly, taking money, to me, I don't like to take money from anybody. I don't like to borrow money. You can only go so far of bootstrapping before you get to the point. It's like, we need to be able to scale because we have so many customers now, and we need to be able to fulfill the obligations of them. So we're very excited about it. It's a great new opportunity for us to do the things that we really want to. And we've got some really cool things that are coming. I can't wait, for us in the next 3 months. They're game changers for the entire insurance industry. If you're not a customer of ours, you'll be blown away when you see this stuff. It's pretty exciting. So.
That's awesome. Okay. Scott Knowles, the co-founder and the CEO at Deep Vector. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Some pretty incredible stories, and it looks like there's some pretty incredible stuff coming. I cannot wait to talk to you again. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it.